to DACA, we'll find all your cousins. I'll tell them you love them, and I'll do what's right. We'll stand at the embassy, we're protesting everything, and I'll take your picture and you'll sing my song. It goes, I don't want you anymore. I wish that you were here, and I don't want you anymore.
Thank you.
I wish that you were here.
Hello and welcome to This CanAsian Life. My name is Rekha.
I'm Gabby.
And we're here today with Sahil Chugh and we are eating some Indian food. So, what kind of platings do you guys have going on here? So you have rice.
Yeah, rice and chana masala, veg pakoras, and the spring roll.
Nice.
It's
I
delicious.
had to get in on that veg samosa, of course.
Yeah, this thing is colossal. I don't know if like you can show camera, but like
I mean,
that is a mountain. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I don't want to get.
No, this is really good. This is delicious, but I think there's always like a nostalgia factor when you grow up eating these recipes. No matter where you get it from, it could be like the 4 Michelin star restaurant, but mom's home cooking. It's just,
100%. So as we're enjoying this delicious meal, we do have a little bit of background noise, courtesy of the kids in the gym over there. We do share a space. Just wondering, so you were born and raised in Edmonton then?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And how have you noticed, like, since growing up in Edmonton, like, have you noticed any changes in your neighborhood with, like, I don't know, like representation of Indianness, if that's, I guess you could call it that, like?
Yeah, I think because I've moved, I grew up my entire life on the north side of Edmonton, and when I went to school and everything was like really diverse and really cultural, and most of the people I knew and were friends with were not white, like people like me and everybody here, and that really shifted when I moved to a more central part of the city. After kind of being in the music industry for a while, and something I've been reliving is as I have noticed a lot of people in my neighborhood where I live right now are actually like, like one of my neighbors across the street is from like Algeria.
Oh, cool.
And he's like really cool, but I think still where I am, it's maybe like a bit less than where I grew up is what I've noticed. But not a bit less, like quite a lot less.
Do you feel like it's picked up? Because I remember like kind of growing up, like no one knew anything about shawarmas at all.
Right.
And I feel like the Avengers end scene happened, and suddenly everyone was like shawarma this, shawarma that.
Right.
And the same thing with like donairs and everything. Like
Right.
I feel like as time progressed, I had to explain less and less what that was. Because people were like, I get that and I know it. Do you feel like that's happened a lot more? Or people
Yeah,
still
I think that's a good point. It does seem that things are moving in a direction where things are like kind of being more diverse and welcoming to other people, and I think a lot of what you just said, like having a lot of these things more accessible, people don't riddle me questions about,
Yeah, because they're always like so like you're like I almost want to have like a tape recorder just to like replay it, because I'm like, man oh man, like I kind of wish they knew more about it, but at the same time I'm also like happy that they're asking me about it, so I kind of want to explain. So it's like that kind of like tough fine edge to cross. Do you feel that also has happened also with the arts and culture, like the media? Do you find that it's more kind of diverse and opening up more to kind of like South Asian culture and Asian culture, or do you feel like, I don't know if I've seen more like representation for, let's say, Arabs in media? I wonder if it's the same for you. A lot of my friends are so excited when, they had like Black Panther and they had Shang-Chi, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, I'm waiting for that Lebanese superhero there, Marvel, but it's all good. Time will tell. Do you feel like that's happened with more like South Asian influences and kind of media?
I don't know. I think you're right. Like Black Panther is super positive, and Shang-Chi and these things, and I'm also waiting for the next Lebanese superhero.
Yeah, see, there it is. Thank you. Yeah, we'll put it out there in the universe.
Exciting.
Manifest it.
I don't know. I don't know. I personally don't think I've really seen a lot of it lately in the media. Like I think things are maybe heading that way. I think there's also a level of it almost feels forced in a lot of ways, and like a lot of other things in the media. It's like people are so afraid to get in trouble or something, so they're just it's like fighting like to have that influence. I don't know, things like that. But I think there have been some really good things. Like I really enjoy the show Master of None.
Oh yeah.
You know, having somebody who looked a lot like me, kind of in the role of like just like somebody living in New York, I was able to like relate to that show quite a bit, and I was like, that was really positive. I think so. There's a lot of things like that I think are really good happening. Yeah, I think there is a trend. That's
and it's headed towards the like positive end, or do you think? Because
I think there is. I think it's just really slow.
Breaking out of those stereotypes a little bit
it's taking
more,
some time,
right?
yeah.
We're not always the taxi drivers as much.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with being the taxi driver, but like some of us want to be the main character, right? Like Master and None, we want to be the main character.
For sure, yeah.
I know Mindy Kaling has come out with a show that was like about growing up as a brown person in a brown family, like at school, and like what that's like as well. And it's just, it really touches a lot of points, and you're just like, man, this is real. This is some
For
real
sure,
stuff.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It's really good. Like it's breaking out of the mold of like the show is about me being brown versus like, you know, regular mainstream shows.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there have been more things in the media that actually like accent or like put forward like the positive narratives of like people of color like in the industry and stuff, and like just having main characters where, yeah, you're right, they're not just like, you know, playing the stereotypes. So I think there has been a lot more of that.
It's like, this is the context of this main character, but also this person's just also a person.
Yeah,
regardless.
exactly. Even with like people who I used to consider friends, I'll tell this story. Like,
Oh.
Yes, we're here for the
Rekha,
tea.
you unlocked the.
We're
Let's
here
go.
for the
Let's go.
tea.
Here we are.
Thank you.
This is
Here we
a
are.
good point.
Imagine this is chai, which is not, but it's tea time.
Yeah, a lot of people just can't see past that fact. And this thing for you, so I remember, and this was like quite a few years ago, and it was a friend of mine who I knew. He's like a really good musician, and we were friends, but we've never really worked together outside of a couple times, like in years past. And he's never really hired me for anything ever. With a lot of the music that we both went to school to study together, things like that. Like we knew a lot of the same people, but he would never hire me for things, which was fine. Like I'm not, whatever. That's just how it goes. But yeah, big admiration for this person. He's a good friend. Then the one time he decided to hire me for something, it's he got asked to be in this like Bollywood cover band. And I was kind of like weirded out by that. I was like, well, you've never chosen to work with me before. And then it was also this like weird thing. I went and like a distant cousin was there or something, and it was just this rehearsal thing in like this basement, and I was like, this is weird. I don't want to do this, but it made me really think twice about our relationship. It's like, oh, he really couldn't see past the fact that I could still just be a musician. He's like, oh, I got this Bollywood gig. Who should I ask? And all of the people I kind of maybe respect as musicians that I want to hire for things, or no, I'll ask the brown guy.
Yeah, of course.
But also for me, like I don't like, I liked some Bollywood movies growing up, but if you know me and if you know me that well, one of the things I've struggled with my whole life is like really trying to be more in tune with my culture and like just like an identity crisis for the last 25 years, right? So it was really weird. It's like you also know me, but it's like this person couldn't see me as anything else. It was pretty weird.
No, it's I can definitely relate to it. I mean, I feel like going through junior high, I was one of the only Arab kids there, and so every time something would come up that was like remotely related to it, they're like, ask him, he'll know. And I'm like, I don't know everything. I'm not like an encyclopedia on just because of.
You're the representative.
They're like, tell us the history of like the business. I'm like, I don't know any of this. Like, why would I? Like, but you are. I'm like, what do you think? I'm just born, and then like the knowledge is just like into me because I happen to be, you know, of this color or of this. I'm like, no. Like sometimes I don't know anything, and like it would be awesome. To, you know, Wikipedia and Google your friends, fam. But like,
Right.
and I have to say, I had that too when I was asked to kind of take part in this documentary. And again, I had never worked with certain people, but they're like, oh, some of the speakers here speak Arabic. It would be nice to have someone on set who could just talk to them. And I was like, you want me to operate camera and film them? Like, no, more like if they ask us things that like we don't know what they're saying, maybe you could tell us. And I was like, oh.
No.
So I'm like a set translator,
No.
and they're like, no, like you'll kind of be. I'm like, I don't know, man, this is uncomfortable, right? Like,
Weird.
so yeah, it's very much like, and I like it's an awful feeling because at the same time you're like, I admire you, I respect you, and I want to be there to do like camera work and filmmaking.
Right.
But I'm brought on here to kind of just be this like halfway point of like, if they have a hard time articulating something, then I'm like Google Translate, where I'm like, he wants you to be more Arab for the scene, I guess. Like, like it's just an awful kind of very demeaning, and it's like you can't see past a certain point, and it's awful. But like at the same time, everyone's like, but you were hired to do this. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think I was hired for my skill set. I think I was hired as a checkbox, and that's like the worst feeling ever. I can imagine.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. That's
like,
kind of what it felt like. Yeah.
So it's just awful, and you're like, and everyone's like, well, aren't you happy you're getting work in your field? I'm like, yeah, but like,
You just pulled me out of inventory.
yeah, like, yeah, exactly, not
You're
like
just
this.
Yes, I have, and this one.
Oh, you want an Arab? Yeah, I've got one of
I
those.
got
Like,
one of those
great. Like,
in my pocket at
like
all
it's some like
times.
sort of Pokemon card you throw out there, like Arab
Let
man.
me
I'm
just
like,
check my Pokédex.
yeah, like. Oh, Sahil, you had told us that you are a musician and pianist. I wanted to ask you, what was it like getting into? I know I get asked this all the time as a filmmaker, like, why film? So I don't kind of want to ask that, but at the same time, I want to know what inspired you to get into the music scene, and was piano your first instrument, or did you go into it?
The piano was the first instrument, I think, when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And I just really resonated with it for a long time. And the other big thing that really inspired me to get into music was my dad is a really big audiophile. It has to have like one of the biggest record collections in the city.
Perfect.
It's
That's
just huge, and like all sorts of music. Puts a lot of money into like listening to music. He really cares about that. So growing up, I was just around a lot of music in that sense. And then the older I got, the more I just really started to resonate with the piano. I used to find ways to kind of improvise and make things up at a really young age, and it just really resonated with me. It seemed like with everything external going on in my life, that was always the thing that I could come back to, and just like, it was fine. Like, I almost had this superstition that if I was like sick or had a cough, like I could play the piano and I wouldn't cough. It's not true.
The
But
healing
it was
power
like that
music,
much
yeah.
of a safe space for me almost. And I remember like even when I was like 12 and onwards until I was like an adult, like I had to play the piano every day. I couldn't go like a day without at least having time to do that. I remember, when I was like 12 or 13, I think is when I really realized that I needed to pursue this. It's not then knowing like what that meant as a career, or like what anything meant, because I was 12.
Of course, yeah.
I just knew I wanted to do this forever, and hopefully there was a way for that to work out. And then the older I got, the more it seemed like this is a more feasible thing to do, and that you can work in the arts industry and make a living.
That's right. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, fun fact.
yeah. It gets a bit difficult because I feel like that was also the thing with like, I realized much later, like I was around cameras and doing a bunch of like skits with my friends, but it never dawned on me as like a possible career path till very late. And then when I went to go kind of explain that to my parents, they're like, so what are you gonna do for a living? And I was like, I didn't think about that. I just thought, I like this and this is what I want to do. And then like that kind of came later. And I feel like as the years went by, they began to understand that like the arts is a feasible form.
Yeah.
You know, but like I would say like, was your dad more understanding or less understanding?
It was a mix of both. When I was, I think probably like 16 or like, in the 11th grade is kind of when I really decided, and around the time I think I told my parents, I was like, I really want to pursue this. I think I want to try and do this. And, justifiably so, my parents from India weren't very supportive. My mom, a bit more so, is like a little bit intense. She's definitely come around now. I have a career and she's super supportive and it's really great. But obviously back then, like, she wasn't really into it. My dad was interesting because he didn't support me, but he didn't not support me.
Yeah,
He was kinda
the
just
neutral,
He was kind of like, I'm okay if you do this, and he seemed very worried about it. And again, I don't think it's something he wanted me to do, but I think he was more like understanding of the choice. Like it's like there was no way I was going to be swayed into doing something else at that point. No matter what it meant to any relationships I really ever had, it was like I need to pursue this. And then since then, it's been overwhelming support, especially from my family. But yeah, back then, like my dad, because he's way more in tune with a lot of Canadian culture too, and just like a lot of that music. And he was like, I think a bit more okay with it, but again, he didn't like rush to like support me in it.
No.
You know what I mean? Which again, also fair.
It's totally it's like you want the support, you don't, but like the new, I want to say neutrality of it is kind of interesting because I think to an extent they see that like you love this,
Right.
at the same time they don't want to break you away from it because they kind of love this. Like it's bizarre that like my parents ate up a lot of Arab like drama, TV series, everything,
Right.
and understood there's an industry for it. But
Right.
the second I was like, I want to join it, like, but is there even an industry for this? I'm like, you're literally watching a TV show as I'm explaining this to you. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, there's an industry for it. Like, hello. And I'm like, Hollywood's a whole thing.
Right.
But like, yeah, at the time they're like, but we're worried. Like, I guess, yeah, it's the same thing as like, there was always that fear of like, will you be able to, make a living off of what you do? Will you be successful in
Of
it?
course,
Right?
and it's such a cultural thing too. And I think the one thing I think about, and I don't know this for sure, but I can imagine, like, especially the way like my mom grew up, and like her family in India, like they didn't have a lot of money to buy it. I don't think, and stuff, and it's not very feasible when you grow up that way to ever assume that you could have a career in the arts anyways. when you grow up in a place like that. Over here it's so much more accessible. It's so much more accessible for me to go to school and try to get a degree in that field. I think over there it's just like, especially how you grow up, it's like,
It's about the startup.
even if you
really.
love music like me, it's like, how feasible is it?
Yeah, no,
it
totally.
kind of isn't.
Because you don't really notice the people who are doing it as like work. You notice the people who like have fame and recognition from it, and
Right.
that's really linked to success versus like
It totally-
you can be in the background, you can be small and
In the arts industry, it's very
Yeah.
sensationalized, and I think there was an aspect when I was 16 or something where my mom assumed that maybe my goal was to be extremely famous. It's not my goal.
it's just the goal can literally be to like do what I love, do it really well, and pay my bills and live like comfortably. Right?
Yeah.
What has been your like genre journey? I don't know why I'm saying genre journey, but I've decided that that's what it's
No,
going to be.
the
Like,
genre journey is an interesting thing. It varies. I've played in a lot of different kinds of music with a lot of people in Edmonton. I've been in like a couple of hip hop bands. I also play in this like old country like rock band, and I also recently started playing with this singer also in that old country realm named Dorje, the singing shaman, who's incredible.
I know Dorje.
Yeah, and that's been really fun and exciting. I've also played in like pop bands and things like that. A Bollywood cover band.
Of course, yeah.
Of course. What did you
afternoon.
guys cover, just like out of
I
curiosity?
don't remember. This is so
Okay.
but varying things, and then for me, I collaborate with a lot of these musicians. That's something I pride myself on, and I work, and especially with with the one band I play in called the Denim Daddies, we all really collaborate together and kind of produce a lot of the music together, and that's been really fun. For me, the album we recorded and the music that I write falls more into kind of the genre of just contemporary improvised music. Jazz is like one definition. It's not what I love to call it, or like really that kind of music in general. But that's what you could call it, like contemporary improvised music. It's like some of it's like really thoroughly composed, and then a lot of it has a really strong focus on like improvising around what I'm writing and things like that. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I remember in the notes I looked at Denim Daddies, and I wanted to ask you, how did you kind of, first of all, that name is awesome. Yeah. Second of all, how did you kind of, because like while looking through things, I'm like, there must have been a thought process to get into country, because was it more intense to kind of get into the hip hop end of things, or was it kind of easier to get into country? What's it like, kind of, I don't want to say like genre hopping, but like, is that kind of...
Yeah, that's interesting you bring it up. I've never really thought about it that way. I think the one thing about the Edmonton music scene, and one thing I really admire about it, in my opinion, is that everything's like really connected as a scene. I haven't traveled a lot, so I can't say a lot of this super for a fact, but I know in bigger cities like in maybe Montreal or Toronto, like there's a much more dedicated like punk rock scene. But in Edmonton, if you're involved in the music scene, you're kind of just involved in like all of it.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think to a degree, I think there's obviously still levels. But how I got the gig with some of the hip hop bands artists I played with briefly a while ago, yeah, I just kind of was around and I met them and they asked me if I wanted to play music with them.
And you're like, yeah.
And then how I joined the Denim Daddies was a similar thing.
It just kind of happens.
I played like a small show at a bar on White Avenue, and then one of the guys in the band was like, "Hey, like, do you want to play in my band?" And then I thought about it, and I asked a really good friend of mine who also played in the band, and he's like, "Yeah, you should play in this band." And I was like, "Okay."
Nice.
Did they like approach you very like Avengers style, like we're putting a team together, and you're like, yes,
Yeah,
and then
that's exactly what it was.
Count me
They
in.
handed me a denim cape, and
you're like,
Yes.
yeah,
I was immediately gifted with superpowers of playing country piano.
it was great.
Perfect.
Good, awesome. You had mentioned an album
Yeah.
you were putting together, so tell us about that process and how. I know that it can be frustrating when you're doing like your first film and first show and everything.
Yeah.
What was it like? Kind of, was it more exciting? Were there growing pains? Like, what was it like to form?
Tons of growing pains, really exciting, and a really good experience. Some of the best advice I got from a mentor before I went ahead to do it was to really treat it like a learning experience, because like no matter what, like it kind of got to a point where I really felt like I needed to release this music, or at least have it recorded, and just really for the first time go through that process as being like the leader of a band. Kind of having to be in charge of everything and like run and try and make it work on my own onus. And it was a really positive learning experience, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But it was a long process. It's been a lot of work and a lot of money. And that's what I learned, is it's a lot of work and a lot of money. That's the two big points. But I think the thing that was the most interesting is everything on this record, except for like one song, it's all music I wrote or started writing when I was like 18.
Oh, nice.
Or something. So it's been like 7 years or so. And when you're that young and you're writing music, I was never thinking about ever recording a record until like 2020. And then it was like, oh, I'm gonna record a record. And it's like, oh, I wrote this song like 8 years ago. Is it even good?
Is it relevant even at this point,
totally.
right?
And what does this music mean to me now? And that's also part of it. I feel like I needed to record it too, because like 5 years from now, I might not ever want to play this music ever again too, let alone record it. So I'm glad I did. Yeah, it's a long process.
Do you ever feel like, because I have it when like I wrote down certain scripts while going to school and stuff, and I was like, yeah, this is like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And then I'll come revisit it later. I'm like, oh god, what is this?
You have to change
Yeah, and
things
you're like,
around to reflect what you want now.
I think the process of composition is, at least with this, is like that. I think there's a lot of benefits to, and something I want to do this year is kind of go through this process of trying to write something completely different every day, because that's not anything I've ever done, and there's a lot to get out of that. But with a lot of this music, and especially when you're getting ready to record it, and a lot of the music I've been writing lately is a much more just like very thoroughly composed music, and with that kind of things, you obsess over it. And I think it's just the nature of writing a song that it changes so much over time. When you write a song, you have to like really get into it. And like, okay, this doesn't need to be here. This should be here. This should be here. Should it be faster? Should it be slower? And almost to a fault, I'll obsess over this for way too long, which maybe isn't good, but yeah.
It's fair. It's like kind of like the perfection. It's very much so like going through the script and you're like, I want people to talk a certain way and I don't want them to seem like inauthentic, but at the same time, if you keep kind of revising it over and over, you're sitting there like, this could have come out 4 years ago, but I'm still sitting here kind of like trying to pick and pull every little.
And the last thing you want to do is like spend so much money and spend so much time on something that nobody will ever hear because of that. So it took me a while to really just.
This is the final straw. It has to come out this year.
Like I'm over it, but yeah, there were definitely songs also from like 5 years ago. I'm like, well, this one's still good. This is trash. This needs to go.
This never existed. Burn it. Yeah.
So what did you end up naming the album?
So the album name is something I came up with a while ago. It's going to be called Don't Be Sad.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
It's provocative.
Oh,
I don't know.
Gets people going.
Yeah.
People, that's right.
Yeah, I guess it's that. It's got seven songs of it. It's piano, bass, and drums. And then guitar on a few songs. Shout out to a really good friend and collaborator of mine, Peter Zawalski, who plays guitar on the record and also helped produce and arrange a lot of the songs with me. He played a really big part in it. I think it's 7 songs. That's really it. And hopefully it'll be released in either October or November of this year.
So fall of 2022, you can expect it. Yeah. I was going to ask, was this recorded throughout the pandemic, and what was that process like?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was. We recorded almost all of it, except for a couple songs, in November of 2020, and it was interesting. The interesting thing is kind of the luxury of time in a way we had to work on the record because nothing else was going on. And nobody was busy with anything else. We were able for like 2 or 3 months before we went to the studio, like rehearse every week or every other week with the band and like produce and work on that music.
Oh, awesome.
Which was really positive. And also everybody who was working on the record all lived like just off of White Avenue, like in the same neighborhood. Close to me, and so that was really positive. Because then when we recorded the other 2 songs that are also going to be on the record, we did that last year in December of 2021 in Edmonton. And everybody was busy. Our drummer lives in Calgary now, and trying to organize that was so much more work and like way less time to rehearse and stuff. But at least it was only 2 songs and not 5. But so that was interesting. But the other thing that we really looked out on is we got so via Hardy Hard Records and the studio in Benalto, they opened up this grant that was an 80% subsidy
nice.
For like a week or more than that in like a week or 2 weeks or something in the studio there, which was like a very good deal. So it's like too hard to say no to it. And everything just worked out. And the other super nice thing was we were all able to stay there. It's kind of like our own bubble, where it's this small town where you can't go anywhere anyways. So we were able to just kind of make sure we didn't have COVID and just go and stay there for like a week. So that made it easier too. But it kind of worked out for us. The other interesting thing about doing this in a pandemic that I'll add is just it was really tough in a sense because prior to the pandemic, like I was just playing music full time. That was my full-time job. And so it was really nice to be really excited about this from like July to the end of the year. And it gave me like a goal. But then once we were done recording it, I was like really depressed.
It's the come down, right?
It's like and now nothing is happening again. There's no live music happening anytime soon still. And we came back from the studio to go back into another lockdown. So it's just really bizarre. So that was like an interesting thing about it too. I think with the pandemic was you get really excited when it comes back, and then it just has been taken away like over and over again.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? But that was a good point too.
I would say like hopefully it's back on the up and up.
Yeah, it
Doesn't
seems like it
happen
is.
anymore.
Yeah.
So like, given your journey so far with like your musical career, what would be something that you could tell like anyone trying to like follow this?
One of the big things is you just have to be really, really confident in what you're doing and like why you want to do it, and have a bit of a thick skin. Because like, I'd be lying if it wasn't tough in the music scene. And honestly, the more and more I've been a part of it, and the more into it I've gone, like in a lot of ways, more challenges have come than just kind of being in it right away. I think some advice I would give is always look for support. You know, if you came into the Edmonton music scene and you were a musician and you were worried or stressed out about something to do with the color of your skin, like, you know, approach me, and there's lots of other people in the scene. Well, not lots, but a few people who would more than willing offer their support and advice. Reach out to people, but I think the important thing is to just be really confident in what you want to do, and just like as hard as you can work on your craft, focus on that. Than the other things. If you really focus on just being really good at what you're doing, at a certain point, the boundaries were maybe put into because of being minorities. Like, people just can't deny you opportunities anymore. It's like if you just get really good at it, at some point somebody has to be like, well, you're just really good at this.
Yeah.
You know? So I think focus on your craft, and the other things will happen. And always look for help. You know, there's always lots of people looking to help, and just be really confident in what you're doing and why you want to do it.
Awesome.
No, I would say that's very fair with like even coming out of school. They're like, make sure to network, because I feel like you come out and you're like, I will lone wolf this, I've got it, and then very quickly you realize that like, no, asking for help, having a team, dividing like the workload and everything does help out considerably more than trying to be like a one-person army and you're like trying to chug along. And sometimes, I don't know if you can attest to this, like it does help to know that like sometimes it helps to know that my friends are working on things when I'm not working on things, just to know that like the scene is alive, because very much so sometimes you feel like, is anyone doing anything?
For sure, yeah.
And then oftentimes it feels like everyone's doing something and you're not, or you're doing something and they're not, and it's like ever so fluctuating. But it's nice to kind of have and check in, and like you said, like a support system, just to be like, how are you guys doing? How is this happening? What are you guys seeing? Trends, stuff like that, I think helps a lot more than trying to be kind of more introverted, shy away from kind of any sort of networking in the field. Like, have you found that kind of the more people you know, the better it feels, or the worse?
That's a good question. This is a good question. The more people I know, it gets easier. It also gets a bit more difficult because, and I don't mean this to inflate my ego or anything. I think there's a lot of people in the music scene, especially in Edmonton, that are like this. When you're kind of a part of the scene here, you kind of get to know everybody, and everybody knows you. I've been like around the scene for a while, so when I go to certain places, it's almost to like, in a way I don't like it. It's hard for me not to run into people. If I really want to go out to a concert just to see the concert, it's hard for me not to often have to put on a face sometimes and be like, oh, I know everybody here. Everybody wants. And you kind of have to go through this thing, and usually it's just you just hang out and it's friends and everybody's really nice. Is more often the case than not, so it doesn't always feel like that, but so in a way it's easier because you have to have those connections and know those people in order to get those opportunities. But in a way it's also sometimes it's uncomfortable when you're like, if you kind of just want to be alone, everybody knows you. Everybody kind of at least kind of knows you, or like to varying levels, and it's really awkward when you don't want to talk to somebody.
Leave me alone, I'm trying to do myself.
Like, and not never in like a rude, like, hey, you're really nice, I want to enjoy this beer by myself. I just got off work. I want to go home.
Yeah, you just need some time to collect and reflect
and
and
it's
do your
difficult
thing.
to do that sometimes. It's like my favorite analogy of the music industry, like especially playing with the denim daddies, right? Like everybody else in the band is white, and we're this. We've toured a lot of like small towns in Alberta and BC, and we've played a lot of bigger shows, and it's a sea of white people, and it's uncomfortable. it's weird. In a lot of small towns, people are super vibed out by the fact that there's a brown person like in the country music industry.
Yeah, because it's like
people are just like,
for them, it's almost like a, I guess like, I've noticed that for country music in small towns, it's very much like a coveted thing. It's like,
for sure.
this is for us.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Do they ever ask you questions of like how you got there, and it's like a,
Do you ever get the like, how country are you?
yeah,
to
how
be able-
country are you?
Oh, yeah, I've had that. I've had mostly like most of the experiences. People have been super nice, so I want to stress that. But there have been a couple times where just weird looks, and then weird times. I mean, this is maybe a bit of a heavy story, but the one time we played in Fernie, and it was this and for this festival, and it's this literally a sea of white people. It's in this gymnasium. There's like probably like 500 people in this gym, and the night just went on. And this one guy came up to me, and he just walked up into my face and was like, "Hey, are you Muslim?" And I was like, "No." And he just was playing. He's like, "Well, we'll find out if you blow the place up."
Jeez.
I walked out of there.
Because they think they're like this is a funny joke for us because it's just a joke, but then they don't really like they don't get it because nobody checks
It
them.
was pretty traumatizing. It
Right?
was pretty weird. It was like really uncomfortable.
Literally, they're trying to show off for each other.
Yeah.
They're like, I got so many jokes for this situation. Watch this, I'm hilarious. But then, you know, it's just it's not that funny. It's not fun trying to like prove number one, like I'm like this is how like brown I am, but this is also that I'm just a person, right?
Yeah, I will say we did not leave. I went outside and told the band, and they had my back, and I was having a really good time. I think that's why it sucked. I was having so much fun, and they had like a trapeze act in the thing, and I was just like pretty drunk, like having fun, and I was like, I'm not leaving. I went back inside, and just chances of me running into this person again were pretty slim. So
Oh yeah, definitely, especially for the rest of the night there.
Yeah.
Well, since we are also having a pretty good time, in my opinion, why don't we up the ante and find out just how CanAsian are you? This is the part of the show where we find out how CanAsian are you with our crew asking us questions and answering them.
Yes. And just so we can bring up some stats here, I've won this twice. Sean has won this once. Rekha has gone 0 and 5 right now? Almost, maybe?
We'll get there.
So-
It'll be a glorious win.
I need one more win to secure the coveted season champ, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, first question. This Indian action star has produced several films in Canada and was named the brand ambassador for the Canada Tourism Commission in India in 2010. A. Farhan Akhtar. B. Akshay Kumar. C. Riz Ahmed.
B.
That is correct.
No, I knew it was Akshay. I knew it was Akshay. Oh, whatever.
Okay,
I don't know anything.
next question. Here we go. South Indian cuisine is a more recent addition to the culinary scene in Canada, having gained prominence primarily in what era? A. 1920s. B. The 1960s. C. 2000.
2000s.
Incorrect.
1960s.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So, beginning in the 1960s and the 1970s, immigration from South Asia increased, and the first grocery stores and restaurants run by Sikhs and other Indians began to appear in Canada.
Nice. Okay.
An Fung is a session musician that tours globally, mixing genres like folk, hip-hop, metal, and jazz, and was on Cold Tea Collective's list of 14 emerging Asian Canadian female artists in 2020. What primary instrument does she play? A. Bass guitar. B. Violin. C. Harp. D. Flute.
Oh.
Bass?
That is incorrect.
I was gonna say sitar. Is that rude?
Harp?
That is incorrect.
The flute.
That is correct.
Yes!
God damn it.
Nice. Disregard what I said, what I was gonna say.
Vivek Shraya is a multi-talented trans artist who has a best-selling book called I'm Afraid of Men and a Polaris Music Prize nomination for this album. A. People Change. B. Part-Time Woman. C. White Dreams.
Be part-time woman.
That is correct.
Yeah!
I didn't want to be
That's
wrong.
right.
No. Okay, you know what? Even if we think we're wrong, we just gotta go for it. We just gotta go for it.
Okay, so next question. This band is a quintet centered around composer and percussionist Ravi Nempali that mixes traditional South Indian sound of the sarangi, sarod, and bansuri with contemporary styles of drum, sax, and electric guitar. They are A. Casa, B. Ravi and Friends Quintet, C. On Karma.
Tassa?
That is correct.
Yeah! Nice.
Oh.
Well, I know I present mostly Filipino, but I have been,
Okay, yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's,
diving into the Indian.
this is the biggest cap of the entire show. Continue, Arthur.
Awesome. Ian Hanumansingh is famous for hosting the nightly news in Canada on which Canadian network? A. Global TV, B. CTV, C. CBC.
Oh.
CBC?
That is correct.
Yeah!
I knew that.
You lose. You need to get this. Or else you lose.
Okay, next question. Which date is proclaimed as the Day of Action Against Asian Racism? A. April 8th, B. May 8th, C. May 10th.
May 8th.
Incorrect.
May 10th.
That is correct.
Yes! In your face, Gabby!
You only got it because I didn't get it!
Yeah, that's, yeah, tell yourself that. Okay.
That's
So, for the first time on This Canadian Life, we have a tiebreaker, and to break the tie, Sahil is going to ask our host a question from this interview.
Take
Okay.
it away.
How many songs are on my record?
7.
7. Also, I
You can't say 7.
New question. Okay, new question. What is the title of my album?
Don't be sad!
You have to wait for us to call. I gave it Rekha that time.
No, record. Okay. Last question.
Okay. What are vegetable pakoras made out of?
Rekha.
lentils, chickpeas, split peas, herbs, spinach sometimes, and it's a doughy donut fried.
I think that's right.
So with that, Rekha takes home.
Do I win a physical copy of the album?
Sure, yeah.
In your face, Gabby! Nice. All right, thank you guys for witnessing my epic win this episode. I have dethroned the self-proclaimed king. Anyways, Sahil, is there a place that people can find you on the socials?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, just under my name, Sahil Chugh. I'll be sharing a bunch of stuff. I've been sharing a lot of videos on those of me playing. You can also look me up on YouTube, where I have a couple of videos from live streams and concerts I've done in the past couple years. Just up on there, and it's a good place to stay updated on my record that will in October or November, I swear.
Definitely stay tuned for Don't Be Sad. And thank you, Sahil, for joining us. My name is Rekha.
My name is Gabby.
And thanks for watching
This CanAsian
Life. Awesome episode. I won the questionnaire this time. So, what's up?
Enough about that. Our guest was awesome. It was good to kind of learn a lot of things about his experiences. I feel like shared very similar experiences.
growing up?
It was super awesome. I myself am an audio engineer, so hearing about the studio he worked in and stuff like that, so it was actually really nice to see and experience and hear his take on it, because a lot of the people I know as well are white, so just hearing his side of it, I've also related to that situation, you know, the 499 to 1.
He was telling about feeling like, you know, like the one kind of minority in a sea of like, you know, people who aren't like you feel kind of out of place. Like it definitely resonated with me.
That was one of the more interesting and deeper episodes, I feel, especially when it came down to being that minority and people not really seeing you outside of that. When we're in the arts and they sometimes don't hire us for anything until they see it's something Asian related, and then suddenly that's us, right? We're there.
I'm just really inspired by hearing about Sahil's story, and amazing it is as it is to have our guests in here and to, you know, really start like a point for us to learn about each other. I'd love to see how it becomes like more actionable, where we're like creating art and like really making spaces for things that we know don't really exist in the creative industry. So yeah, I'm just really excited about that and the future to come.